feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon.
All right. Hey guys, this is the first of a series of videos I'm going to do that are just going to go through some list reviews for army lists that did really well at an event that I found particularly interesting. And so for our first ever episode, we've got Jay with us tonight. Say hey, Jay.
Hey, what's going on? What's going on?
So Jay is a very experienced player, and he recently took his awesome Ultramarines list to the Clutch City GT, where he went 5-1. And so we're going to go through Jay's list and talk about what he did that made him so successful at this event, and talk about the different matchups that he had in detail. But before we get into all that, I'm going to go ahead and let Jay introduce himself and his team. So go ahead, Jay.
Hey, I'm Jay. I'm the captain of the Forge Masters, sponsored by the Forge Hobbies and Games here in Houston, Texas. I put this team together. I mean, this team's about a year old now. Put the team together. The owner of the store is a friend of mine. I TO regularly at the store for their local RTTs, and it's just um, it's just a fun time that we have. We just look for um, people with great attitudes, and we're more about the community and having fun than we are, you could say, about playing competitively. Though,
Yeah, I'm gonna interrupt you there. I can vouch for that because like every single person on your team is awesome. I've played against a bunch of your dudes, and everyone that I've talked to has just been a load of fun to just talk about the game with and actually play games against. Really great sportsmanship on that team. So got to give you credit there. That's been
yeah,
great.
and for me, that comes from a personal place. Uh, Especially, I've been competing, or playing competitively 40K since fifth ed. And I have a redemption arc per se. I don't know if you knew this about me, Ruben. So I was on a team years ago during fifth ed. We got really competitive, and it became more about the win than the attitude,
Hmm.
right? And the pressure was so intense for the win that I cheated.
Hmm.
I cheated, and I got caught cheating. Um, Needless to say, I was banned for a year. I took an extra year off of self-imposed exile, and I did self-reflection. I didn't like the person I became. It was
Hmm.
toxic. I was an extremely toxic person, and I didn't like that at all. I hobbied. I played friendly games. I played
Hmm.
just for the fun of it, and I hobbied. And I came back about 2.5 years later, played at Clutch before its current iteration, before it was taken over by Holland, and did well in those events.
Hmm.
Came in second place, came in first place, you know. But it became more for me about just having fun than trying to curb stop someone, trying to overrule them, trying to be a rules Nazi or anything like that.
Hmm.
And so I took that attitude with the formation of this team. Skills can be taught. You can be taught the rules and every little rules interaction in the game. But what you can't teach is attitude.
Yeah. Definitely. And there's definitely a lot of personal growth that goes into that. And so I always love when I see people that do grow like you did, right? Like you realize that there was an issue and then you changed. And I didn't know you before, but I've met you since then, and I can say that I would have never even thought of that as you because of the player that you are today. So kudos to you
I
for being
hey
that person now and changing
and
that.
and and to it's not what would be the opposite of insult to injury, and this would be it, right? One of the members on my team is a TO who caught me cheating.
Oh wow. How about that? Look at that. That's amazing. And now,
Now
like,
that-
look at you. You're here, you're active, you're a leader in the local community, and so much as good has come out of the changes that you've made. So that's fantastic. And like I said, you lead a great team. So let's talk about the event that you guys just competed in.
So it's Clutch City GT
Mhm.
2023. Um, we had, as a team, uh, scheduled our year of events to see how many people we can get to every event.
Mhm.
We really do want to focus on the Texas Championship circuit this year. And so we're guaranteed 5 members, minimum 5 members to each of those events.
Mhm.
So this year we had about 10 of the full roster hit Clutch City GT.
Wow, that's awesome.
We were extremely excited for the opportunity to play
Mhm.
at Clutch
For
to
those who don't know,
represent the
Clutch
store.
is in Houston, Texas, and we have a really competitive meta here. There's a ton of great players in the area, so all of our big events, they get pretty great turnouts, and they're very competitive.
Indeed, it just boggles my mind just the absolute variety of armies that are out here, and
Hmm.
the player base, and just like the different levels of skill between all the different teams in Houston. I think we have about what, 6 teams, 6 different teams in Houston.
Yeah, something
It's
like that at
it,
least.
it's just an insane variety, and variety is great.
Hmm. Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit about your army because that's what everybody's here to listen to. You took an Ultramarines list, and I know that Ultramarines are not one of the top performing lists in Arks of Omen at the time, right?
Oh yeah, like, but here's the thing, like I approach the game with a different philosophy when it comes to the tactics on the table and
Hmm.
everything. In fact, this philosophy is about 2 years old. I ran a very similar version of this list in 2020 Clutch, and I was 5-1 then,
You mentioned that to me before.
right?
Yeah.
I was 5-1 then. I made it to the top tables, and I lost to um, eighth ed Harlequins,
Hmm.
right? Um, but the overall concept, is still the same. Um, so Ultramarines, what are they great at? They're great in the tactical doctrine,
Hmm.
right? That's their bread and butter. So this list takes that to the T. It just takes advantage of that as best as it can. Bet extra AP, move and shoot, down as stationary, and all the auras. So unlike, or contrary to popular opinion, I am not a fan of Gilliman at all. I think Gilliman's hot trash and he should go back in stasis. Okay?
Savage.
Gilliman is hot trash, and that's a hot take, and he can go back in stasis for all I care. My slogan is "We'll make Calgar great again."
All right.
Okay, we're gonna make
Okay.
Calgar great again. So the list, we start with. Let me make sure
Let
I've
me
got
go
everything.
ahead and bring that list up, actually. I have it right here. All right.
Okay, so uh, one of the most important characters, other than Calgar, is Tiggy, and I don't know why this psychic powers aren't showing, but so I took Null Zone, Psychic Fortress, and Veil of Time. Okay,
Hmm.
why? I mean, those are some of the best powers he has access to. Again, Tiggy is +1 to cast, reroll cast, +1 to deny. He doesn't need a psychic hood because he's always got +1 to deny at the full 24, right?
Hmm.
Now, what is important about Tiggy is his ability at the beginning of every battle round, not the turn, not the player turn, the battle round. He picks a friendly unit within 6 inches, and that unit is -1 to hit in shooting and close combat. That just increases survivability. When you make people go from hitting on threes to hitting on fours, or hitting on twos and hitting on threes, you're already skewing the odds in your favor
Right.
for whichever unit you need to survive, right?
Hmm.
So let's let's just keep that in mind. So second person, lieutenant in Reaver armor. Now people are gonna go. I mean, I've had a lot of responses like, "What the hell's a lieutenant in Reaver armor?" Reavers in general are trash, right? They do
Right.
have a great set of supplementary rules to them, but Reavers in general, the unit itself is bad. But the lieutenant in Reaver armor gives you the rerolls ones to wound, right? And he gives you access. He's a toolkit, right? This is a toolkit army at its heart. This list is a toolkit list that has the capability to deal with every opponent, every type of army, right? So reroll ones to wound, Seal of Oath, Lord of Deceit, and comes in that extra package of everything that Reavers get access to as far as stratagems, right?
Right.
So let's keep in mind, what does he have? He's got -2 to leadership. He's got the fearsome aura, -2 to leadership built into him. He
Mm-hmm.
has the Phobos keyword. This is important because without the Phobos keyword, I can't take Lord of Deceit, right?
Right.
Lord of Deceit allows me to redeploy 3 Phobos units. And then he has shock grenades. Shock grenades prevent overwatch. Should you ever find yourself in that position to charge, you have a unit now that can prevent overwatch, right? Um, and he can turn off OBSEC.
Oh, I
So
didn't know
again,
that one.
again, lots of tools, right? You have the options to do all these things. It's just that you got to put yourself in a position to do those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Seal of Oath, right? It's the delete that unit button. That's got to go, right? Like that unit is a threat. It's got to go. That's the
Mm-hmm.
one that's got to go, right? So all these 6-inch auras um play into the theme and the strategy behind this army. Then we come to Calgar. So in the previous iteration of this list, I never ran Calgar. He was too expensive, right? He was at 180 points before all the
Mm-hmm.
points drop, right? But at 160, he's a steal. Again, chapter master, so he can give up the chapter master rerolls, 5+ refund CP, right? He's T6, 8 wounds, halves damage, 2 up, 4 up, always hits on 2s with his power fists that are AP -3. And yeah, they're D3 damage, but there's like 7 attacks with him. I think
Good
8 off the
grief.
charge, right?
Yeah,
Right?
and
He's still
I've
a
always felt like
beast.
Calgar is really actually pretty good, but I never see him for whatever reason. Maybe I just
He's
don't play enough Ultramarines, but he's pretty good to me, man.
So then we come to troops, heavy intercessors. This is
Mm-hmm.
my front line. This is the unit that takes the beating always. This is the unit that I put out there to take the beating. Literally marching up the board to the center, right? T5, 3 wounds with a 3 up save. You have the option to make them OBSEC and in certain cases, depending on scenario, +1 to save, right? Because of the Gravis armor stratagem.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's take Tiggy's -1 to hit, put it on them. Now they're -1 to hit in shooting close combat on top of all of those other defensive capabilities. Just makes them harder. Throw in a 5+ invuln save. They just get tougher and tougher to deal with, right? I'm not saying there aren't answers to deal with it, but
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying is I'm giving my front line the best survivability options. At this point, they're essentially Terminators, right?
Yeah, well, true. You stack enough buffs on them, they get surprisingly durable for 5 little guys.
Correct. And
Especially for the point cost too, 115 points. Yeah.
and then we come to the weapons option.
Mm-hmm.
The the idea behind them is quantity over quality, right?
I really like that, actually.
I've done the math on this. The Hellstorm heavy bolters eke out by a percentage damage
Mm-hmm.
over all the other weapon options, right? Over the course of 5 turns, they produce more damage over the long term
Huh.
than any of the other weapon options, right? And it is highly valuable for Ultramarines, in my opinion, to have an infantry, especially a heavy intercessor because of the survivability with a heavy bolter variant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you get access to Hellfire shells. Nobody uses, at least as far as I know, and I've seen many people play.
Mm-hmm.
No one uses Hellfire shells. Hellfire shells are a beautiful diamond in the rough stratagem. So Hellfire shells, you do one shot. If it hits, it does D3 mortal wounds or 3 mortal wounds on a monster.
Yeah, that
Just
mortal wound
straight,
thing's going to come up later on when we start talking about these
just
matches too.
straight damage, right? So
That's
then
awesome. Yeah.
we come to incursors, infiltrators, your quintessential forward deploys. Infiltrators have always been good. The 12-inch did not deep strike or reserves deny. Incursors are there because I just didn't have the points. Something had to go. But the Haywire Mine also, this incursor unit actually came in, that Haywire Mine came in the clutch
Mm-hmm.
in a couple of my games. Invictor is there for the turn one threat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Nothing causes havoc in your opponent's lines than a turn one charge. And I don't
Yeah.
know other than Emissary Custodes 5 bikes zooming across the field on turn one, Melta missiling you and charging something else, or now World Eaters, right?
Oh yeah.
But the difference is like World Eaters 8 bound will have to still move across the board. The Invictor can start 9 inches away
Mm-hmm.
and move 10. He's there, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You're
That
9 inch.
early pressure can really mess with your opponent for sure.
And so the Invictor's there to cause havoc, assassinate something, and then die. That that's its whole purpose. If it ends up going second, it gets pulled back and it joins the phalanx, as I like to call it. So um Primaris Apothecary just lends more survivability to the front line, which is the heavy intercessors. You bring them back. If the entire unit's not killed, if you have survivors, you bring back anyone who's any model that's been destroyed. Redemptor Dreadnoughts, a classic staple.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so here we come to Relic Terminators. And so when I was building this iteration of this list, both these units um, required a lot of. I thought long and hard about these units because Stern Guard were steel at 100 points.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're looking at triple combi plas, a power fist, double grav cannons, right? So they're set up to be a jack of all trades. The Stern Guard unit itself puts out 20 shots
Right.
because you can still fire the bolters and the combi plas. So if you're in a position where you're flying through dense terrain, why not just fire everything, right?
Right. Right.
Um, Truth be told, I don't know how I really feel about their performance in this tournament, and
Mm-hmm.
so as far as my opinion goes, jury's still out on them. But the Relic Terminators were great, right? So
Which I
again,
think
I
is
have a
funny because I remember when the points dropped for Space Marines, everybody was all about the Stern Guard, right?
mhm.
I've seen lists where they just had triple Stern Guard units all over the place, just spamming all those combi weapons and heavy weapons. And so that's interesting to me that it did not perform for you at this tournament the way you anticipated.
Well, those
Because
lists
that's a
are
lot of
running
DACA
them
for
in
100
sorry.
points.
Right. Yeah, those lists like the Iron Hands list or
Hmm.
Salamanders list, they're running them in drop pods to get them there, to get them within rapid fire range, right?
Hmm.
And I have a different take on drop pods, right? Like you know me before the points drop, actually at the end of 2022,
Hmm.
I switched back to my Ultramarines because I was playing Death Watch for the
Hmm.
longest time, and I just have like a single drop pod with a couple Devastators in it. It's a waste. I don't think it's that great. I believe that more veteran players are able to deal with that, and it really doesn't affect them as much. So
Yeah.
going back to the relic terminators, I was looking for a unit that shoots and does close combat at the same time, right?
Hmm.
um you can't get any more punchier than a chain fist. And this is where I was deciding between regular terminators or the relic terminators, right? Here's
Hmm.
the give and take, right? Here, so regular terminators can either take the cyclone or the assault cannon, but the sergeant has to take a power sword. Actually, that sergeant in the regular terminators does not have access to a chain fist. He can't switch out. He has to take the
Right.
power sword. Right? I didn't like that. I was like, you have to remember the sergeant has the extra attack. Why not give him the chain fist? This is the only way you're going to get the chain fist on a Terminator sergeant is through relic terminators, right? Um, there's a give and take between Reaper autocannons and assault cannons. Assault cannons more shots, less AP. The Reaper they're both 1 damage, but the Reaper autocannon is actually AP -2 base,
Hmm.
right? So if we take into account Armor of Contempt is gone, that AP -2 packs a punch on top of a bunch of AP1 bolters, right? So that's 4, 8, 12 because I'm Ultramarines.
Hmm.
We drop down turn 2. We count as stationary. We fired full ballistic skill. We fire as if we hadn't moved. So all our bolters at 24 inches are firing 4 shots. Or the combi bolters are firing 4 shots, right?
Yeah, that
Uh,
adds up.
Plasma Blaster is just there for flavor. Yeah, the toss up is between Plasma Blaster or Volkite. Volkite has no AP. It's a heavy weapon. I'm not gonna benefit from it in tactical doctrine. So we take Plasma Blaster. It's assault 2, 18-inch, strength 7, -3,
Hmm.
1 damage, or you buff it, right? But
Right.
because it's assault, it'll go to AP -4. That's just gonna chew through it 3-up saves.
Yeah. That makes a
Um,
bigger difference, especially with Armor of Contempt out of the way.
right. And I haven't been in a game yet where the Terminators where I felt I needed to charge with the Terminators.
Hmm.
You know how it is when you have a unit that you dedicate to come down from deep strike 9 inches away. You want that charge. I don't care.
Yeah.
Um, Attack Bike Squad. This is another tried and true unit.
Yep.
Triple
Those are
multi
pretty
melta,
common.
right? I prefer to take them in the squad of 3. Even I mean, in my games, even against the guard player, he couldn't kill all 3.
It's a lot of
All
wounds to chew through. A lot of
all I
wounds,
need is
good
one to
toughness.
survive. Yeah, one survives, it runs back to the apothecary, and the second one comes back. See, that's the
That's so
difference, right?
crazy too. I had someone do that against me. It was nasty.
Right? See, I mean, ATVs
uh,
have been FAQ'd. You can't return, you can't,
right.
resurrect them anymore. But
But the
attack
attack
bikes,
bikes.
yes. Um, we come to Hellblasters for heavy support. See, Hellblasters are a multi-role kill unit. Absolutely multi-role kill unit, right? High AP, high strength, and multiple shots. That's 15 shots. Strength 6, AP -4, 1 damage. Or Strength 7, AP -4, 2 damage. In Tactical Doctrine, that's AP -5. So
Good
it says,
grief.
screw you, screw the cover you're on, and I'm going to and screw the guy behind you.
That's a lot of shots and a lot of AP. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the assault plasmas. Honestly, I wouldn't take them any other way.
Right. And you have the flexibility to advance and shoot too,
Hmm.
should you need it, right? And then lastly, this is my pride and joy, the Vindicator Laser Destroyer, right? I love this thing. It commands presence on the board. It's a great 175 point distraction Carnifex. that has to be respected, right? For those of the who are unfamiliar with the term distraction carnifex, it's literally a unit that just draws fire, draws attention to itself, right? Um, but those units need to be scary still. At the
Yeah, why don't
same
you tell
time,
them how scary the Vindicator Laser Destroyer is if you just let that thing sit around all game?
sure. So the Vindicator Laser Destroyer is a T8, 11 wound, 3 up save beast. It moves 11 inches, I believe. It has two firing modes at 36 inches. First firing mode, strength 9, AP minus 3, heavy 3, 3 plus D3 damage, right? So we're now all used to D3 plus 3 damage because there are multiple units doing that, right? Fire prisms, dark lances, all those. But its second firing mode is strength 10, AP minus 3, 6 damage, also heavy 3. It's guaranteed 6 damage. With all 3 shots hitting and all 3 shots wounding, that's a dead armiger. That's a dead kill rig. That's a dead Lehman Russ. Heck, that's a dead Rogel Dorn.
It's a lot of damage output.
Right? And then it's got storm bolters for the hell of it, and you can tack on 2 hunter killer missiles for 5 points each. But I don't. It's unnecessary. And it comes in I wouldn't say clutch, it just makes its points back every time for me. Every time, because you can still use the 1 CP Ultramarine stratagem to auto hit 1 shot. Right? So of the 3 shots, 1 CP, auto hit 1 shot, roll the other 2. And just go at it.
Awesome. Well, that is a very interesting list, very heavy on the firepower, but even though you've focused on firepower in this list, you've still got a lot of punch to it. You've got those relic terminators, you've got the 2 redemptors, you've got Calgar. So
Hey,
it's you can't just
Tiggy's no slouch in combat.
that's a good point too. But yeah,
Tiggy
so you've got
Tiggy's
all
strength
these
7.
units that you can't ignore if you get close either. It's not like a typical gun line where you think if you just get into combat with it, you'll be all right. Because you get into combat with a Relic Terminator squad full of chain fists and you're not going to be all right.
Not going to be all right. And let's
So,
not forget, even if you do get into close combat with Ultramarines, they can fall back and
yeah,
shoot.
that's true. That is true.
It's infuriating to a lot of opponents because you can't hold me, right? Like you can't hold the front line. And even if you do, there's a stratagem for Ultramarines to fall back, shoot, and charge.
Yeah, that's nasty. Well, great. Let's go ahead and take a little break here, and then when we come back, we'll go ahead and discuss your matches and go through the matches that you went up into one by one. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, be right back. All righty, and we are back. All right, Jay, this time we're going to go ahead in this part and go through the different matches that you had. So I've got your pairings up, and I'll go ahead and put that up on the screen as well. All right. So here we have your matches. Your first match was up against Chad Stubblefield. What was Chad running?
So this what's interesting about this was the team captain on team captain fight.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Chad Stubblefield's the team captain for the Etten for Team Etten. And
They have a pretty strong team too, don't they?
yeah, they do. So he's the team captain for Etten, and let me pull up his list. Now, credit to him, I don't think he prepped for clutch. I mean, he told me he hadn't played in about 3 months, so he brought a Hail of Doom list. He brought Craft World Eldar, Hail of Doom, and he ran Baharoth, a Farseer Skyrunner with
Mhm.
Doom, Executioner, Mark of the Incomparable Hunter, and Kernus Bow. So he's running that mortal wound shooting Skyrunner, right? And then another Farseer Skyrunner with Guide, Focus, Will, and Witchblade, and Janezar. 2 units of 5 Rangers, a unit of Corsair Void Scarred with a Fellark and a Wayseeker with Fateful Divergence. 2 units of 10 Dire Avengers, one with Strutting Fire, the other one with Obsec. 2 units of 5 Howling Banshees, one with Piercing Strikes, Mirror Swords, and the other one with Crone Scream and Nerve Shredding Shriek. 5 Scorpions, Biting Blade, Crushing Blows, which is also another Eldar staple. 3 Shining Spears with the Kane's Lance on the Exarch, the Paragon Saber. 6 Wind Riders with Shuriken Cannons, 5 Wind Riders with Catapults, and a Falcon with the Crystal Targeting Matrix.
Okay.
So in this game, if I recall, he decided to put the Nerve Shredding Shriek Banshees in the Falcon and put them in reserve.
Okay.
Okay. I'm trying to remember if he put anything else in reserve. He put the Shredding Fire Dire Avengers. I believe he used CP to be able to deep strike them.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, if you want, give me a second. I'm gonna send you one of the pictures I have of the game.
Oh,
I have
okay, cool.
pictures.
Nice.
I took
Very
photos
cool.
of my game. So let me see. Yes. So where is it?
And real quick, for anyone that's not familiar with Hail of Doom Eldar, you want to just tell them how that list works, basically.
So it maximizes on having as many shuriken weapons as possible because they're fishing for sixes to hit. Sixes to hit, there'll be AP -4. With the cannons being 2 damage and everything else, either one. It's either 1 to 2 damage, but they're fishing for sixes to be able to just shred right through your armor saves. And with Armor of Contempt gone, Halo Doom is essentially back on the menu for Eldar. And this goes back to what I was saying about just the survivability of bringing the survivability of the heavy intercessors to bear with -1 to hit and 5-up invuln saves and feel no pain.
Mm-hmm.
So let me see. So yeah. So if you see, did you get the pictures?
Yeah, I'm about to bring those up.
Okay.
All right. So I've got
Okay.
one up here. Let me see if I can flip this around somehow.
So that first picture with Chad measuring is the bottom of,
There we go.
yeah, that's the bottom of turn 1, right? I went first. Okay. I believe I put the Terminators in deep strike here. Yeah, I did. So what this doesn't show is how I redeployed. I pulled you see that hard left flank with the bikes, the Redemptor, and the
Laser
tanks?
destroyer. Mm-hmm.
Yes. They weren't there. I had hard redeployed them behind that building and then they moved up, right?
Okay.
And the reason they did that is because in that center building, what was there were the Shining Spears reduced to 1 man, and all of the 5 bikes with shuriken catapults. So
Ooh.
my first turn of shooting, I deleted the 5 bikes with shuriken catapults and the 2 out of the 3 shining spears. So in the center is where he has the Corsair Void Reavers. He's got Janzar and Baharoth in the center.
Back here.
Right. And then on the left, because the mission here was abandoned sanctuaries, right? That's right. The mission here was abandoned sanctuaries, so there's no forward deploy. I believe he also put the Rangers in reserves. That's the other component I was missing. He put his Rangers in
Okay.
reserve. Okay. Now where he's measuring from, that's where the OBSEC Dire Avengers are, and next to them they're doing it. Look out, sir, for a Farseer over there. And on the other side is another 5 bikes with the shuriken cannons and striking scorpions and the other Farseer, right? So the Farseer on the right, I believe, is the mark of the incomparable hunter. No. The mark of the incomparable hunter Farseer is on the left. That's right. Right. So if you look at my deployment or after my first turn movement, I have a hard left flank. I'm pushing center. That's 5 heavy intercessors flanked by the 2 redemptors right behind them. You can just see that model in white. That's the apothecary, definitely within 3 inches. Tiggy, Hellblasters, and the Tiggy, Calgar, Hellblasters are in the building behind them. And then on the far right is the Stern Guard. Infiltrators are in the building on the far left, and incursors are in strategic reserves. Okay.
All right.
So I push up. I've already made it to center. So at this point, I'm holding 3, set for turn 2 to hold 3 and more than him, right? And I believe Abandoned Sanctuaries is a hold 2 mission, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check. Let's see, Abandoned Sanctuaries.
Those hold 2s are really tough.
No, it's not. It's not. I take that
Okay.
back. It's a hold 1. It's a hold 1.
I was gonna say I'd be surprised if that one was, because that's a rough one to get onto.
Right. So it's a hold 1, which is fine. But he's pressured at this point, having gone second, and I'm already set up. He's pressured to get that objective, right? You see where he's measuring to?
Right.
But the problem is, like, that's gonna put him out in the open. So if I recall what he did here, he pulled the Dire Avengers out to like right in front, right in that firing lane, and he fired all the 30 Dire Avengers, or the 10 Dire Avengers into that Redemptor Dreadnought right across the way, right? He does 7 damage to it and doesn't kill it. And then he battle focuses into the building. He rolls a 6 for the battle focus, and so he's able to move into the building, because if you battle focus into area terrain, you lose 3 movement, right? So the 6 was a good roll. And then on his turn, the Scorpions on the far left come out, charge the bikes, and the Shuriken Cannon bikes move out. They just peek out to the left, range the Vindicator Laser Destroyer. They kill it. It doesn't explode, and then they fire and fade back behind the building. Banshees and Jane Czar and the one Shining Spear move into that building in the middle on his left to my right. So you see that building, that L-shaped building in the middle. They move to there, and Baharoth just jumps out into the open to take a few pot shots at the heavy intercessors to no effect. Combat sees for turn 1 combat, Scorpions charge into the bikes and kill 2 bikes. Actually, before that, so Scorpions charge into the bikes, and Banshees charge into the heavy intercessors. Now, he has the 6 for the auto 6 to charge, and he needs a 9. It was a 9-inch charge. He needed to roll a 3. He fails it, has to spend the CP for the reroll, and makes it on a 10. Janezar, however, fails her charge. Okay.
And the reroll's
So,
already been used.
correct.
Ouch.
So, so now what happens is Banshees that strike first. I can't overwatch the Banshees because they were behind that area terrain, so there's no line of sight to overwatch them, and Banshees prevent overwatch. Banshees hit the buffed heavy intercessors and bounce hard. I think they kill one heavy intercessor at the cost of 3 of their own. On the other end,
that's rough.
On the other end, before I activate the heavy intercessors and I spend the 2 CP for the interrupt, and the bikes kill 3 scorpions out of the 5. They kill 3 scorpions. The Exarch kills 2 of the bikes. Morale is passed everywhere because Ultramarines have +1 leadership, so their sergeants are leadership 9. And their regular troops are leadership 8. So with 2 models gone, I can't fail that leadership test on the bikes.
Right.
In my turn, let me see, what's the next picture? Yeah, so you'll see, no, not this one. There's another one. I sent you 3. Yeah, this is the one. So in this one, no, not this one. Oh, I think you clicked. Yeah, this is the one.
Okay, there we go.
So you see it, this was his movement. There's Baharoth over there. You see the Scorpions having come out. You see the Dire Avengers having come out. So this was the end of his movement, right? He's ready to psychic cast and shoot. He got guide off because he kept his psychers away from Tiggy. So then we can go to the next picture.
There it is.
This is the one, right? So I respond in kind. So you see the Terminator's deep strike, right? So several things happen here. The bikes fell back to the apothecary who came around the corner. The dreadnoughts hurt over there. Stern guard come out, and I string the infiltrators across this way, as you see here, to prevent the turn 2 deep strike from the Falcon.
Oh, that's right. He still had the Falcon in reserve.
Correct. And while the bikes pulled back, and now that the Vindicator Laser Destroyer is gone, it gave the Invictor on the far left the opportunity to come around the building and charge the Scorpions inside. So what you can't see inside that building on the far left, where you see the Invictor, he charges Scorpions, right? The Terminators deep struck 9 inches in that open area to the left of the barricades that you see there, and they actually shot Janezar because she was not lookout sir. The only thing in front of her was 1 shining spear.
Oh man.
So they wound capped her, and then they charged the shining spear. This Redemptor on the bottom, the hurt Redemptor and the Stern Guard, along with, you see that line of Hellblasters on, yeah, they take out the Dire Avengers.
I imagine.
So they take out the Dire Avengers.
Little bit of overkill there.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure they're dead. We want to make sure they're dead.
I think you did that.
So this was him in the middle of removing models. So currently by turn 2, at the top of turn 2, I was holding 2. I believe that's what I scored. Let me look at my app. Yes, I controlled 2. I did march for McCrag on the center on my turn 2, so I did march over there. And then so I took we forgot about secondaries, but I took march, oaths, and behind enemy lines. Right. However, it was at this point. So actually not at this point. At the end of my turn, this is the end of my turn, and so we come to his turn. He deep strikes the Falcon behind the building on his top left in his deployment zone. Jane Czar comes out to play and charges the Hurt Redemptor. The Farseer on the top left, along with the Shuriken cannons here, shoot and don't kill the Invictor. They leave it to 1 wound. The deep striking 10 Die Avengers also choose to deep strike into his deployment zone and in that top left building to range the heavy intercessors. I think they killed 1 again. That -1 a hit, and they didn't have guide on them. Along with Feel No Pain, just in the 5-up invuln. It was just too much for the Die Avengers to handle, apparently. But Jane Czar comes out, charges the Hurt Dreadnought. She doesn't kill it. She leaves it with 1 wound.
Really?
And mind you, yes. She leaves it with 1 wound. And then I roll 2 hits and it kills her.
Ouch.
He fails the invuln and it kills her. And it's at this point, he asked me if I have any interest in playing it out. I say, hey, if you're ready to call it, we can call it. But I tell him, look, I'm only going to score what I can score. See, there's many a time where people want to quit the game, and they'll be like, all right, you'll get 100, but I don't like that, right? It's like, could you really score 100, right? So at the end of this, I scored 97 to Chad's 46, I believe, or 50. If you want to, does BCP show what he scored? What the score was?
I don't think I had it up there. I'll have to find it. No,
Okay.
I don't have it.
Okay, so I had it down as 97 to 46. And what I ended up scoring was full march, full oaths, and behind enemy lines, because that was the character already for that turn. Yeah, and then
I've got it 97 to 50. I just pulled it up on my app.
And then 12 for behind enemy lines is what I scored.
All right. Well, that was a pretty convincing win there. So let's go from that to your next match. And we'll just keep it. We don't need to go into quite so much detail with these, just for lack of time that I've got here.
Yeah.
But this one was definitely an interesting one that I want to hear about. Your second match after you won this game against Chad was against Cliff Russell. Now, Clifton's a friend of ours, right? He's a really cool guy. A lot of fun to play against. Great sportsmanship, great player. Consistently does well at events, and this time he decided to take Genestealer cults. Last time I saw him playing, he was running Tyranids, but this time he went with the cults, right?
Right. So I sent you the 1 pick I have of that game.
Okay.
Which is interesting because we played all 5 turns, but it was just such a nail biter. I forgot to take pictures. Right? I took pictures at the beginning, and then we were just so engrossed in our game that I totally forgot to take pictures. So we'll go through. So the mission was, let's see here. What does it say? Secondaries. Mission was Tide of Conviction. Okay. And I took Bring It Down, Oath of Moment, and March for McCrag. I could score pretty much all of these. And he took Ambush, Retrieve Data, and Brood Swarm. And this was the hold 2, hold 3 mission. Okay.
Gotcha.
So if we look here, I won the toss to go first. Okay. On the far right is Infiltrators. In that objective, a little off center is Incursors, Double Redemptors. We're holding down the fort, that building in the middle, Laser Destroyer, and Stern Guard. And in this game, I choose not to deep strike the Terminators. Everything's starting on the board. Everything's starting on the board, right? So if you'll notice, so what happens is on my turn 1, he's got those three trucks to the right of the building. Okay, there is a firing lane from that leftmost truck through the trees right next to the crater.
Wow.
I aimed for that, and the Vindicator Laser Destroyer got there. I spent 1 CP on 1 auto hit, and I rolled the other 2. I got 3 hits. I'm sorry, 2 hits. So the auto hit and 1 regular hit. And both wounded. He failed the 6-up invuln. I believe he said he had, or no, he didn't have a 6-up invuln. No save because it's AP -4. The vehicle blew up. It actually blew up.
Oh no.
Right. This Redemptor of the 2 Redemptors, the one on the left also went in the same direction and fired at the next truck next to it. Blew it up as well. Invictor just moves up into that hole, shoots the contents, charges the 3rd truck, and kills it.
Jeez.
Okay. The front line of heavy intercessors, terminators just move up. Because I took Oath, I'm gunning for center, right? Bikes take the right flank, and the characters are all behind it. The Infiltrators and Incursors sit still to perform March on turn 1. So he does not like the Vindicator Laser Destroyer. Everything comes out, and he starts focus firing down the Vindicator Laser Destroyer. He spends quite a few of his units to kill it. There's a lot of back and forth on this. So I got 8 I controlled 2. So this is how primaries went. I controlled 2 on turn 2, then 1 on turn 3, 1 on turn 4.
Ooh.
And then 2 on turn 5. He got 2 on turn 2, 3, and 4, and 1 on turn 5. Right? I got two bonus points on turn 4 and 3 bonus points on turn 5. He got 2 bonus points on turn 2 and 6 on turn.
Okay. And this was the hold 2 for 4 points. So you mean you like held you got the 8 points in each of those rounds, you mean?
I got the 8 points because
gotcha.
we were fighting hard for that objective marker right there in front of me, right where the incursors are. That's what we were fighting over.
Wow.
And over and over again. In fact, these Infiltrators did not move all game. They moved by turn 4, but there was not much for them to do. But it was them staying here, not getting shot, and just preventing him from appearing anywhere here with his Genestealer cult madness. He told me this pretty much won me the game here.
Jeez. I
Just
never
this
thought
move.
about how valuable that would be to have them there.
Yeah, he's like,
Just that no deep strike, no reserves within 12 inches of them.
right, because he couldn't even strategic reserve through there.
Wow.
And he was telling me, he's like, he was waiting for me to bring them out because he wanted to kill them. And I was like, no, I know you want to kill them. No, no, no. They're staying there. They're going to babysit that objective. I know I have sticky objectives. That's not the point. They
So who are
cannot
your...
afford.
Sorry, go ahead.
I said they cannot afford to get shot. Not at
Yeah.
all.
So they were some of your MVPs in this game, huh?
Right. So, the second MVP was the Terminators. So by turn 4, he managed to kill all the heavy intercessors. Dude, it took him 4 turns to kill heavy intercessors, right? That
Sheesh.
front line was heavy intercessors and Terminators. They move at the same speed, man. It's 5 inches, right? And he could not kill that last Terminator from turn 3 onward,
Mm-hmm.
and I kept resurrecting Terminators. I resurrected at least 3 more Terminators, and then they marched into his deployment zone.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, they marched into his deployment zone, um, and gave him a hard time. He maxed out ambush, only got 8 for retrieve data,
Mm-hmm.
and then maxed out brute swarm. Not maxed out. Sorry, he only got 4. Or what did he? No, sorry, what did he mess up on? I think one of the bonuses he messed up on. I might have
Mm-hmm.
miscalculated it, but the
Okay.
game ended up 85-84.
That's wild. 1 point game.
1 point game indeed.
That is so tight. That is such a tight game. That is insane, man. So your MVPs were the Terminators and the Infiltrators in that one. I think we're going to see a few more Genestealer cults popping up at the top tables
Genestealer
just
cult
because they're
is
so
is
good right
strong.
now.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Genestealer cult is absolutely strong right now. They
I mean, we had how many Genestealer cult players at this event? I mean, still not a lot by proportion, but more than I'm used to seeing. Because usually you'll see like one or none at these events, and this
eight.
time there were a few. There were a few.
Oh, there were more than a few. I mean, I think Genestealer cult won it.
Yeah, yeah. Genestealer cults ended up taking it away from Kit, who actually won Clutch last year. But we'll get into
Yes.
that later. But yeah, so that's awesome. Awesome game. Let's go ahead and just quickly recap your next matchup as well.
Okay. So this one's also going to be a quick one. I sent you the picture I have of it. Mainly because this game did not take very long either.
Mm-hmm. All right. Go ahead and go into it, and I'll pull up that picture
So
as
I
soon as
went
I
up against
find it.
Goth Orks, triple kill rig, Gaz, Squig Lord, Truck Boys, 20 Storm Boys, a commando unit, and just, lots of a good number of grots, right?
Mhm.
Um, the mission was, let's see this, missions. Conversion. Mission was conversion, and I went first. I won the toss to go first. I took assassination, oaths, march from a crag.
And
He
this was
took
against John, right?
John Felton, I think is his name. Yeah.
Okay.
He took Green Tide, Get the Good Bits, and Warp Rituals. So he was stuck on his third. He and I had talked about it. It's like, what's a good third? I was like, because the list I'm bringing, my Ultramarines list, gives up 8 for Bring It Down and something like 7 or 8 for No Prisoners. I don't give up a whole lot. You can take Assassinate, but good luck getting to those characters.
Yeah, Assassinate's not really good against that. You can keep your characters back all you want.
So this picture depicts the bottom of turn 1. No, his not the bottom. It is the bottom of turn one because he went second, but this is his move. This is in between his movement phase, right? So he's still
Mhm.
moving stuff. Okay. But what we don't see here, on the board at least, because you see it in his dead pile, is those two kill rigs.
So you're telling me that's not reserves, that's dead after turn
That's
one.
dead. That's dead.
Oh my gosh.
So, do you see the big hole in his deployment right there, right next to that top right objective marker?
Yep.
There were two kill rigs there, 10 storm boys. The truck was there also, and then covering that little gap where the truck came through was the three squig riders, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so and what you also don't see is my Invictor. My Invictor started 9 inches away from his deployment, right on that center objective, right?
Mm-hmm.
9 inches away. Um, I don't think I had to redeploy on this. But the Terminators moved up and got a bead. So where they were, they got a bead on the Squig Riders. They killed 1.5 Squig Riders. On the top left is my Infiltrators. On the bottom right is my Incursors. And you'll see one Orc model because that's what's remaining of the Commandos. That's the knob after they shot them. Okay. I seal gas. So the laser destroyer itself aced a kill rig. I spent 1 CP for auto hit,
Mm-hmm.
rolled the two other hits, everything hit, everything wounded. He failed his 6-up invulns, 18 damage.
Yeah, and you can't really hide those kill rigs. Those things are enormous models.
Right.
Those are so
So
long.
he loses 3 models from the wreckage.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the lead or the rear redemptor opens fire on them. And then it splits fire between firing at them and the other kill rig.
Mm-hmm.
The lead redemptor fires at the kill rig and hurts it as well and finishes off the rest of the occupants who came out the first kill rig. The Invictor splits fire between Gaz and the Storm Boys. I think I kill about 4 or 5 Storm Boys,
Mm-hmm.
and I wound cap Gaz. It charges, it multi-charges the Storm Boys and the hurt kill rig. I focus all the attacks on the kill rig and kill it. Just kill it. Gaz heroics into, that's how close he was. Gaz was 3 inches away, and heroics into the Invictor, killing it.
Mm-hmm.
The Invictor explodes.
Oh no.
The Invictor does 3 mortal wounds to Gaz, kills 3 more Storm Boys, and 2 mortal wounds to the Squig Riders. It also does 1 mortal wound to the truck, right?
That's insane.
In his morale phase, Squig Hog Riders run away, and so do the rest of the Storm Boys.
Wow.
Okay. So in his turn, he wogs, which I don't blame. I
Mm-hmm.
that's the play. Wog, right? Gaz is coming out. The next kill rigs shimmies through that gap. Truck comes out. Truck boys get out. The commando knob moves up to the incursors, and the rest of those grots behind also move out. Shooting, well, psychic, nothing happens. He fails the psychic tests. And shooting, nothing happens either. I save all the shots that he makes. It wasn't worth noting. Actually, the only thing worth noting is that he used the strat on the kill rig on the Terminators to have
Mm-hmm.
their movement, have their half their movement and half their advance or something like that. Um, And so here's where charges happen. He charges Gaz into the Redemptor and the Heavy Intercessors. I Overwatch, I do the Ultramarine Overwatch, and we wound cap Gaz. So Gaz is now down to his last wound. Gaz makes the charge to the Redemptor and the Heavy Intercessors. The Kill Rig makes it to the Heavy Intercessors, and the Squig Lord comes out and charges the attack bikes alone. The Orks, so I the infiltrators on the far left, you see four of them, but the fifth one is touching the objective marker and they were performing march. So the Orks come out, the truck boys out of that, I think that was truck boys, come out, charge the infiltrators, the knob at the bottom charges the incursors and dies to the haywire mine.
Oh man, that lone knob goes down to a haywire mine. That
The, lo-
is,
the lone knob dies to the haywire mine.
that's an epic visual, by the way.
Just like, uh-oh, boom, right?
That's fantastic. So how
Um,
did this game end up, and who were your MVPs here?
so the MVP was, I mean, hard to say that Invictor. That Invictor was the MVP, just randomly exploding and just doing a bunch of mortal wounds. I mean,
You
I
did
can't really I can't really count the laser destroyer because it's
Uh-huh.
always been doing that for me. It's like, all right, there's 3 hits, 3 wounds, and that shit just blows up.
That's insane. Well, that's awesome, man. Well, we're gonna stop here for a second and then come back to your last two games in just a minute. But man, that is absolutely brutal. You ended that game pretty quickly. That
Yeah.
was that
So
was
it
over
was at
pretty
this point.
fast.
It was at this point John asked me if I was interested in playing it out. Hey, I
Uh-huh.
said I totally understand if you don't want to. I'm fine. And I
hmm
told him let's see what I can score, and I could physically score 100 on this. So the ending score was 100 to 59.
Brutal. Awesome, man. Well, let's come back to your last two in just a minute.
All right, buddy.
All right, so now we're ready to talk about the last two matches you had. Is that right? Are we at the last two?
Last three, right? So this
Last
is
three?
day
Okay.
day two. I don't want to say much about my game four, day
Mm-hmm.
one. Not because I lost it, mainly because it was recorded on War Games Live, and he's got it behind a Patreon wall, so I don't want to step on his toes. But needless to say, I went up against Demons, against the one of the, or as one of my teammates put it, the Goodwill Hunting of 40K, Kit Harrington, a really amazing player, and uh, I did not go first that game, and I did not win that game.
All
Okay.
right.
So we come to game 5 against World Eaters. This is a red versus blue scenario. The mission for this one was secure missing artifacts. I did forward deploy on this one, and because I didn't go first, I redeployed back. I spent the 2 CP to redeploy 3 additional units, so I redeployed 6 units total. Um, as far as secondaries goes, my opponent Marcus, great player by the way. This was one of the most chill games I had because as one of my teammates who got to buy and watch this game put it, she's like, it's just like watching 2 old guys just have a meeting. She's like,
That's
it's just like
funny.
seeing 2 gentlemen just
Oh
have a
man.
meeting. Um, so he took Pile of Skulls, Blood for the Blood God, and Raised Banners.
hmm
I took March, No Prisoners, and Behind Enemy Lines. Okay. Um, I put the Terminators in Deep Strike, and I pulled the Incursors for Strategic Reserves. Okay, so if you see this is literally my deployment, and this is his pre-game move and midway through his turn 1 move. And so what we have in the center already halfway across the board are 2 units of 5 8-pound. And they got to do that because of the Lord Invocatus, who moved up here behind the top blue crate. You see, he's got a demon
Oh,
prince, and
that's where he is. Okay.
yes, the top blue
So
crate
he's
there,
towards the middle, but hiding behind line of sight, blocking terrain there. Got it.
right? And he's got two armigers and a demon prince. The demon prince flies south behind the berserkers in the center. So he's got jackals pushing forward, and he's got jackals and spawns. He's got two spawns back here holding that. And so he's raising banners there and raising banners on, which you can't see there's an objective under that building or in that building where
Mm-hmm.
he's at. And so he's raising banners on both of those places. And he's also got a spawn in there in the mix as well. He put into Deep Strike 2 units of 3-man exalted 8-pound. Okay. I believe he had two 3-man units of exalted 8-pound. Yeah, he had 2 units of exalted 8-pound. So as we can see, my deployment is from top to bottom. I've got a Redemptor with infiltrators in front of him, the conga line of attack bikes with the Vindicated Laser Destroyer. I pulled the Invictor Tactical Warsuit back, flanking the Dreadnought. Touching the building in a conga line right there are the Heavy Intercessors, the Hellblasters out front touching the building, and on top are the Stern Guard. Inside the building are all the characters. Calgar's right at the corner, Apothecary and Lieutenant behind him, and behind them is Tiggy. I -1 the Heavy Intercessors from Tiggy's ability, and I seal that second unit. So that top unit of 8-pound. So you see their conga line as
Mm-hmm.
well, right? So
Right.
there's one touching the crate, one that's closer to the forest. So the one closer to the forest is the one I seal. Um, at this point, he's got no choice. He's got the charge, right?
Mm-hmm.
In his shooting phase, so both the armigers come out and he spends CP on them for like +1 damage, I think. And he absolutely kills all the Stern Guard because that's what he has line of sight to. He focuses his Stern Guard and kills all of them. So then we come to charge. This closer unit of 8-bound multi-charge, the Heavy Intercessors and the Hellblasters. I spend the 2 CP, as you can see, I had 3 left. I spend the 2 CP for Ultramarine Overwatch. And because he picked both of those, I have free reign of what to choose to Overwatch with. And essentially, it was Hellblasters, Heavy Intercessors, and the Invictor Tactical Warsuit. They all Overwatch and kill all the 8-bound.
Oh man.
So then he takes the second unit of 8-bound to charge the Hellblasters. Not the Hellblasters, sorry. To charge the Heavy Intercessors.
Mm-hmm.
And I spend the 1 CP for Overwatch, for regular Overwatch, on the Heavy Intercessors and kill 2. Because they're the seal target. It was full rerolls to hit, full rerolls to wound, and I set to defend.
So out of the 10 8-bound in your face, only 3 of them actually ended up making it in.
Incorrect. He
Oh
failed the
no.
charge.
Oh man. So
Unfortunately,
that's brutal.
he failed the charge. Okay. So in my movement phase, the bikes, yeah, so he was left with basically 2 8-pound left. The bikes push up and around the corner, and we do a delicate dance of reformation. I advance the Hellblasters from that U-shaped building, and they get the advance they need to get to the L-shaped building in the same formation, right? Calgar pushes up onto the objective, while the rest of the cast, well, before the characters move, I move the heavy intercessors
Mm-hmm.
to get behind Calgar, but I leave the last heavy intercessor inside the corner of the building. So they're in a loose formation where they were still within Calgar range. They were still able to get Tiggy's 5-up invuln and the feel no pain from the apothecary and the reroll ones to wound from the lieutenant. Invictor moves up, followed by the Redemptor, and then the Vindicator behind it, behind all three. So I'm conga lining my vehicles at this point, and they're
Mm-hmm.
about half an inch away from the wall of the building. Infiltrators advance to get to the objective, and that Redemptor up top goes over it or around it from the top to get line of sight and range on those jackals. Wait, no, that's not what I did. In fact, actually, what the infiltrators did, they didn't advance to there. I remember that's what I was thinking of doing at first, and I decided against it. The infiltrators just actually moved to get line of sight and shoot the jackals. So along with the Redemptor and the infiltrators, we kill a bunch of jackals. I think we kill like 8 jackals altogether or more. That's 2 units of jackals, by the way.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yes, that's 2 units of jackals. The laser destroyer fires 3 shots at one of the armigers or his war dogs, the chaos knights,
Mm-hmm.
forcing him to rotate iron shields. 1 shot gets through, doing 6 damage. The Redemptor and the Redemptor splits fire, plasma on the armiger, the rest of the shots on the sealed 8-bound in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
Kills him, kills the 8-bound, and puts damage on that armiger. I essentially take that armiger back down to lower bracket. I don't kill it.
Mm-hmm.
It's too far for the weapons of the Hellblasters, and I think the shots that made it to him either didn't wound or he saved it on his rotated iron shields. So it's at this point, it's turn 2, and he pushes the hurt armiger up behind the wall to get line of sight on the Redemptor up top. The other unhurt armiger gains a bead on the heavy intercessors. He deep strikes behind my building, not behind, but to the bottom of the building. One of his exalted 8-bound.
Uh-huh.
The picture cuts off, but he deep strikes an exalted 8-bound, and it has to be 9 inches away from that last heavy intercessor that I placed in the corner after they moved. Right.
Okay.
And he holds the last exalted 8-bound. In the shooting phase, he has the untouched armiger shoot at the heavy intercessors, killing 2, and one of the ones that I pull was the one in the corner. Right. This is important. This is
Oh
important
man.
because it turned his 9-inch charge, which he used the blood tithe point for 1+1 to charge. So he would have had an 8-inch charge, but now his only targets to charge were the vehicles on the other side of the building. Now that was an 11-inch charge. Needless to say, he did not make that charge. even
Oh,
on the
that's
reroll,
rough. That is
right?
rough.
So he didn't make that charge. He shot the Redemptor up here and took 5 wounds off of it. And then on my turn, because the center was clear, I started just pushing up
Mm-hmm.
down where the eight bound were.
Mm-hmm.
Terminators actually deep struck in front of it and created a second front line. So he did a good job of screening me out into his back line. I kept the incursors back one more turn. Um, and so we just started shooting. We killed one. The unhurt armiger died. The hurt armiger died. I pulled the infiltrators back into the ruins to perform March from a Crag, and I just started pushing up the center. Hellblasters moved onto the objective in front of my deployment zone to do March from a Crag there, and we're now doing a really concerted effort push. The Invictor tactical warsuit rounds the corner to face off against the exalted 8 bound that failed their charge.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting because I never see an Invictor that's pulled all the way back.
Well,
That started there, but it makes sense against this type of army, right?
right.
Because then he can come in later and do his work.
So like hilariously ironic. The longest range weapon in my army rarely gets to use its full 48 inches,
Mm-hmm.
which is on the Invictor tactical warsuit. You see the irony,
Oh, that is funny. That is funny. How about
right?
that?
It's twin autocannons are actually 48 inches, and it rarely ever gets to play at 48 inches.
That's wild.
So,
So how
um,
did this end up then? How'd this game wrap up?
so this ended up wrapping up by the Redemptor pushing pretty much almost all the way into his deployment zone. Um, the incursors on turn 3 came up, so I killed all the. I left one jackal after shooting all of it with the Redemptor.
Mm-hmm.
Incursors came out, made a charge on the jackal that got me behind enemy lines.
Oh wow.
Berserkers in the center came out to deal with it. Like he made this second grand charge with the Demon Prince and Lord Invocatus
Mm-hmm.
into the lines, and Lord Invocatus charged Tiggy and the Apothecary and the Heavy Intercessors, and the Demon Prince went toe to toe with Calgar. Okay.
Interesting.
Now, while he made those charges, I think he forgot that I had put Veil of Time on Calgar. So when he made those charges, he started with Lord Invocatus on
Mm.
Tiggy. I transhuman Tiggy and managed to save Tiggy through Feel No Pains.
Wow. I
Right.
can't believe that. That is nuts. He
Because
actually
Lord
survived that.
Invocatus cuts through invulnerable saves.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then because he activated Invocatus first, I was able to get the free interrupt because of strikes first through Veil of Time on Calgar,
Mm-hmm.
and Calgar killed the Demon Prince outright.
Wow.
Just killed him outright. The Demon Prince did absolutely nothing for him this game.
Don't underestimate that Calgar, man. I'm telling you, he's good.
I think, if I recall, I did exactly 8 wounds
Oh,
because of the
jeez.
D3s. I did
Uh-huh.
exactly 8 wounds. Right? The Demon Prince has 8 wounds. We both looked at it as like I was
Oh,
counting it. I counted the D3s. I was like, yeah, that's 8 damage. And he
that's
looked at me, I
nuts.
looked at him, he's like, That's a dead demon prince.
Wow. So what was the final score in that game then?
94-77. And
Mm.
again, the Haywire Mines came in clutch because the Berserkers made the charge to the Incursors
Uh-huh.
and lost one from the Haywire Mine. Okay. Um, so thing to note on this is that I believe he would have done better if he just went balls to the wall.
Mm-hmm.
I took behind enemy lines on purpose because I wanted to see if it would change his game plan, and it totally did, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand that these berserkers in the center doing nothing for him. They're not on an objective. They're not fighting. They're not shooting. They're doing nothing. So for 3 turns straight, they sat there. Because why? Because he was trying to screen me out of his deployment zone. But that's not, like that's not what berserkers are for, right?
Man, I would have thought he would have taken that little spawn and stuck it right there where those
Oh, the
berserkers are.
spawns just stayed put in where they were.
Interesting.
And I still scored 11 on
Oh
behind
man.
enemy lines.
Well, that's just hurtful.
I just and got 2 CP out of it.
Man. All right. Well, let's move on to your last. This is the last game now, right?
Yep, this is the
So
final
you've
one.
now won 4 and lost 1, and you're going into your last one to try and earn that 5-1, right?
Yes. So this was you say this was the dreaded matchup against Imperial Guard, right? The new boogeyman of
Oh yeah.
competitive 40K, right? My opponent, Noah, really skilled, highly skilled, great player. I have nothing but good things to say about this guy. Okay, so what you don't see here, this is what turn is this? I'm trying to think. I think this is turn 2. Yeah, this is turn 2. I went first. Okay. Here's what you don't see here. You see where those 3 scout sentinels were?
Mm-hmm.
They actually started, if I recall, they started more towards the center, just a little bit above that L-shaped building right there, right near to his
Okay.
deployment zone, right? Because no, I take that back. That's about the place where they started, I think. Because what took up a lot of space here was a Bane hammer.
Mm.
Okay. I started 9 inches away with the Invictor. The Invictor was basically on that objective. Moved up 10 inches. I redeployed, and also what you don't see here was you see where those 3 attack bikes are? Sorry, where the 3
Yeah.
attack bikes are? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So where the 3 attack bikes are, that's where they fell back to. But what was here was my Vindicator Laser Destroyer, a Redemptor, and then the 3 attack bikes in front of them. The Seal of Oath Lieutenant is in that building in where you see those 4 Stern Guard in front of that building, right?
Okay.
And I shot everything at the Bane Hammer. Okay. And this is how I killed it. The Vindicator Laser Destroyer did 10 wounds. 10 damage to the Bane Hammer. The Dreadnought did another 10. I think the Bane Hammer is like 28 wounds, right?
Mm-hmm. That sounds right.
And then the Meltas performed really poorly and did 6. So
Wow.
so it had 2
Only
wounds remaining,
6.
right? So what finished the Bane Hammer off were the heavy intercessors. So you see where
Don't
the
hear
heavy
that every day.
So this is how I finished off the Bane Hammer with the heavy intercessors. I spent 1 CP for Hellfire Shells. I needed to hit on a 4. I rolled it. I rolled a natural 4, which it wasn't that big of a risk because I actually gave the heavy intercessors Calgar's full rerolls.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we fired the Hellfire shells, and I rolled the D3 mortal wound damage, and I rolled three mortal wounds, and blew up the Bane Hammer on turn one.
Man, that is a big loss.
Um, it gets worse. So inside the Bane Hammer, inside the Bane Hammer was you'll see, are they, yeah, they're not there anymore. So the infiltrators took care of them. The Bane inside the Bane Hammer was a command squad with an Ogren. He called it the unkillable Ogren because it had a 4-up invuln,
Mm-hmm.
a 5-up feel no pain, and when you shoot at the unit, you have to use the Ogren's toughness. Everything goes on the Ogren first. And he had a squad of Kasserkin. He lost 4 Kasserkin
Mm.
in that exchange, right? And because of how tight that deployment was, he had no choice but to put the Kasserkin in front and somewhat inside the building, and gave me a wonderful charge for the Invictor.
Oh no.
The Invictor left 1 Kasserkin alive, if I recall. What you also can't see is at the that bottom building,
Mm-hmm.
or where my incursors they're still there at this point. They got shot, so there was a mortar team there, and they shot the mortar team and left it to 1 mortar. There
Mm-hmm.
was also a Lehman Russ in front of them that shot them. They survived, and then it charged them and took 3 mortal wounds because of the Haywire Mine. But I did spend the 2 CP on them to be able to perform the action. They performed action and shot over there. So they did march and shot the mortars over there. This game, he to his credit, he continued to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
He was very demoralized after losing his Bane Hammer on turn 1. The Bane
Yeah, that's
Hammer
pretty
was
demoralizing.
the the Bane Hammer was sealed. Obviously, of all the targets, I'm going to seal the Bane Hammer.
Naturally.
But the Bane Hammer ate it. That's 2 Lehman Russes at the top. He tries to kill the infiltrators, leaves me with 1. He also shoots at the bikes. He has line of sight from that top bike. So those bikes fell back there because they got charged by that Ogren, and he tri-pointed one of the bikes. Tri-pointing means he put models around the bike so to prevent fallback, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the only way I could fall back was to spend 2 CP for Desperate Breakout,
Right.
right? So I spent the 2 CP for Desperate Breakout, fell back, didn't roll any ones. But he shot the bikes with the Lehman Russes, killing 2 bikes. So the line just, if you see the Congo line of Marines, we just keep pushing up. I force him to bring out the other Kasserkin squad in front of the building, exposing themselves, and he dumps his CP into that Kasserkin mortal wound bomb and does not kill all the Terminators,
Wow. Okay.
right? He then is forced to use his mortars to try and kill the Terminators, which he eventually does kill all the Terminators with all the mortars that he uses.
Hmm.
Um, Calgar advances ahead. Hellblasters are at this point forced to double back because he has Tempestus Scion units starting to drop in my back line because this was tear down their icons,
Mm-hmm.
and he was planting the bombs,
Ah, gotcha.
right? The lone bike did not advance to the apothecary. Instead, it started also dealing with the units that were dropping behind my lines to plant bombs. We do successfully kill all those units. A couple of them were obsec, so they successfully planted the bomb, but I was able to successfully defuse the bombs. Um, the Redemptor at the bottom actually survived the game. And after I mean, he didn't have it was an abysmal turn of shooting, but um, it's just me racking up my defensive capabilities. So he
Mm-hmm.
kills the Terminators. Calgar advances forward because at this point I have Hellblasters, I have the Redemptor, I have the Heavy Intercessors who move up onto that center point to perform March. They have Tiggy's -1. They have a 5-up invuln. They have Feel No Pain, and he brings out all 3 tanks to focus fire on the Heavy Intercessors. I pop Transhuman, and then
Mm-hmm.
he also throws in the mortars, and I pop the Gravis +1 armor strat. He kills 1 Heavy Intercessor.
Oh, that's insane.
He kills 1 Heavy Intercessor. Now, um, interesting turn of events on these Scout Sentinels. They push forward. Um, and they go for the Stern Guard. He kills 1 Stern Guard in shooting and charges them, which was a poor roll of shooting on his end. He charges them and kills another Stern Guard in combat, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's close enough that I'm able to heroic with the Reaver Lieutenant. Oh, yes, this one. He's close enough that I'm able to heroic with the Reaver Lieutenant.
Mm-hmm.
And his combat leaves me with 2 Stern Guard, the Sergeant and 1 Grunt. My return swings sees that hurt Scout Sentinel die, and it explodes, doing 1 mortal wound to its buddy and 1 mortal wound to 1 of the Stern Guard. So that one was killed by the Reaver Lieutenant and the 1 Stern Guard Grunt. The Stern Guard Sergeant with the Power Fist claims 1 Scout Sentinel on his own. So that's 2 Scout Sentinels dead in close combat. And I wasn't sure, but we both looked at it and I go, don't you have to take a morale check? And yeah, he did. And he had to do it at a -2 leadership because of the Reaver Lieutenant's fearsome aura.
Oh my gosh.
He fails the leadership test, and the last Scout Sentinel runs. It runs.
Sheesh.
Um,
That's insane, man.
yeah. So I push in the next few turns, next turn after this, after his shooting, I push the Heavy Intercessors into the trees to get an additional -1. So the additional
Mm-hmm.
-1 helps, especially against the Lehman Russes, because remember their turrets give them a +1. So with Tiggy's -1 and the Forest -1, that makes those turrets hit on 5s, which was pivotal. It just added to their survivability.
Yeah, that makes a difference. Hitting on 5s, that's that's tough.
So we
Especially
come
when you can combine that with transhuman, so then they're
mhm.
also only wounding on 4s. I can see why they could absorb a lot of firepower that way.
So we come to a point where he forces himself. So this white squad of guard here are actually the command squad. So they're a character squad, right? At this
Mm-hmm.
point, they're lookout served by the mortars, I believe, but and the Kasserkin that were in there. But the Kasserkin die to the Redemptor and the Heavy Intercessors and Calgar, and then he's got nothing left to look out, sir.
Oof.
I decide to go for Lord Solar. So Redemptor and Heavy Intercessors shoot at Lord Solar, and I actually kill Lord Solar with another Hellfire Shell. Lord Solar was brought down to 3 wounds. I Hellfire shelled Lord Solar and did 3 mortal wounds. To I rolled a 5 and a 6, a 5 or a 6, and 3 mortal wounded Lord Solar to death.
Mm.
And it was
That's
at this
crazy.
at this point, I think it was turn 4.
Uh-huh.
He called it. Um, and we ended the game 98-81 against Imperial Guard.
That's amazing. Yeah, you played against some really tough armies, man. But that firepower that you had in your list, and like you said at the beginning, that you had that toolkit, all those toolkits, you had so many different tools at your disposal that you're able to just do so much with this list. I really like that list.
Yeah, it's like I said before, it's a toolkit list. I mean, and that's at heart. I mean, in my opinion, at heart, that's
Hmm.
what Ultramarines are, right? They're jack of all trades, master of none. So I have a
Hmm.
little bit of combat. I have a ton of shooting, but different types. Like I can deal with hordes. I can deal with armor.
Hmm.
I One of the ideas behind this list was, you know, can I beat the gatekeepers of competitive 40K? Which to
Right.
me, the gatekeepers are knights. Knights have been and always still will be the gatekeepers of top tier 40K, right? If you can't
Hmm.
beat knights, in my opinion, you have no business like trying to beat the meta armies, right?
Right.
So, and essentially to beat knights at its core, you have to be able to kill a big knight a turn, right?
Hmm.
Or 1.5 big knights a turn, right? So if you can't do that, it's like you're gonna be in a tough situation if you can't kill a big knight a turn from turn 1.
Hmm.
And this
Well,
list
you've
can do
definitely got the firepower to do that for
that.
sure.
Right? Like this
Yeah.
list can kill a big knight a turn on turn 1.
Hmm. So
Um
what was your toughest matchup?
so Kit Harrington and
Kid.
Demons. I mean, it was combination of things. I almost went first that game. I rolled a 5 to go first, and he
Hmm.
matched it. And so then I didn't win. I didn't win the re-roll off.
Now, was it a combination of the army and the player, or was it mostly just the fact that it was Kit?
Combination of the army and the player.
Hmm.
So demons are a hard counter to me,
Okay.
mainly because like you have to like demons, you can't stop their saves, right? Like there's
Right.
no such thing
Right.
as AP doesn't matter to them, right?
Right.
And so it all comes down to the dice. And so I mean the only way you can kind of get around that is just to make him roll more saves, right?
Hmm.
I can do that, right? However, in that game, I banked on a very risky play and it didn't work,
Hmm.
right? I decided to get aggressive against him, and it didn't work out.
Yeah, that's one of those strategies that if you take it and it doesn't pan out, it's gonna fall apart pretty quick.
Oh yeah, it fell apart pretty quick. It
I
fell apart
believe it.
really quick.
But you came back and you still beat some of the boogeymen that were out there, like this Imperial Guard or Astra Militarum and the Lord Invocatus World Leaders. So you hit back against some pretty tough lists as well.
Yeah, world
But
leaders.
yeah.
I had. I mean, as captain, part of the team, we hold weekly practice. We've been holding weekly practice for
Hmm.
ourselves every time, and it's an open practice. Anyone locals welcome to join us. We do it every Wednesday nights at the Forge, 5 p.m. till closing, and
Very nice.
it's specifically practice. We don't play full games. We
Hmm.
talk everything out, right? So we talk about the matchup. You get paired up against someone. We talk about secondaries, terrain placement if it's player placed terrain, you
Hmm.
know, um, deployment, opening moves. What are you gonna do? What are good opening moves to do against this army? Where does these set of opening moves leave you
Mm-hmm.
prepared for turn 2, right? Because if you notice, a lot of the games, especially in my games, are decided by turn 2,
Yeah, yeah, I've noticed that
right? The games
definitely.
are literally decided by turn 2. So we play until turn 2 and re-rack.
Mm-hmm. That's great practice, man. Well, we're just about out of time here, but Jay, just wanted to thank you again for being the first person on this show, being able to go over this army list. Congratulations again, 5-1 with Ultramarines at such a big event. That's an awesome showing. I think you
Hey,
came in 9th overall. Is that
I
about right?
did. I did
So
come
you
in
were in the
ninth
top 10
overall.
there. That's fantastic.
I want to give a shout out to all my opponents, all great gamers, all great guys. We had all fun games. Shout out to my team. I think we did as best as we could. We did fantastically. And to my store, The Forge, not my store, but the store that sponsors the
Yeah,
team.
awesome, man. Well, great to hear it. Thanks again for showing up, and congratulations again on such a high placing. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to really benefit from what they're able to learn from your experience with Ultramarines here. So thanks for taking the time to go over your list and share with us how you used it in every single game.
Thanks, man.
So take care, Jay. And
Have a good
thanks to
one, y'all.
everybody for checking in and watching this video to the end. I'll do more of these. There are a lot of lists I'd love to go over. So thanks for your time. Talk to you guys later.
I can feel the blood creeping up from the heathens. Got will, got fight, got pride, got reason. If they wanna go eat, then you know I'm gon' feed them. If you're coming for me, hope you're ready for a demon. I got eyes in the back of my head, I'm seeing. Take me for granted and you know I'm leaving. I'ma take what's mine with the webs I'm weaving. I could take this crowd from seeing to believing. Got a taste for blood and my tongue keeps bleeding from the words I spit. So sharp, so freezing, so cold. Behold, frostbite they feeling. I could tear you apart or I could go heal them. Don't believe in fate,